to the Gazette's high school basketball podcast. Jeff Johnson in the red. I'm in the tidy navy blue, and hello from cold Cedar Rapids. How you doing, JJ?
Wrapped up in a blanket at the moment, nice and toasty. So don't feel like going outside anytime soon, right?
No, at least you don't have snow to shovel. So that's good. So
it's all how you look at it.
Yeah. Well, we had a Tuesday night, probably about 70 to 80% of the games in the area went on as scheduled. A few games got colded out. You were at Cedar Rapids Kennedy for the Cougars NBC game with Hempstead, and what'd you see there?
Kennedy's playing really well right now. 8 wins in a row, and beat Hempstead, which is a pretty decent team by 20 points, and it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about almost ad nauseum, Jeff, is that, the parity in the NBC, and you try and figure out who you think's the best team and the second best team. And, Mike Kennedy might be the best team right now, just the way it's playing. And, has a really good guard court, and, Kenzie Reed and Colby Dolphins and Blitz as well. Those 3 guys, they can all shoot the 3-pointer. They got a really good team. And, you asked me off before we started this, if you give me your top 5 in the NBC. Well, I'm like, okay, I think Kennedy, Prairie, Iowa City West, Cedar Falls, and I don't know. Who's playing the best right now. So I think the 4 I mentioned are probably in the discussion for best team in the Valley. And but again, it's like anybody can beat anybody. I mean, you look at Washington goes Monday night, for instance. Washington goes and beats Dubuque, Hempstead up in Dubuque, and then last night loses to Western Dubuque. So there you go. And you saw a really good or the rematch. Can we call it the rematch, quote unquote, City High and West Friday night?
Yeah, saw that Friday. If this was football, you'd say the boot was on the other foot, but you can't say that for girls basketball. Just say the Nikes were on the other foot this time. West won the game. I think it was 52-49, avenging a loss earlier this year at City High. So I guess home court held both games, and then City High lost the next night to Xavier. So I suppose right now you'd have to say Iowa City West is the best team in the area, probably the second best team in the Valley to Waterloo West.
And you mentioned Xavier. Tell me a little bit about the Saints.
Very, very dangerous in 4A. I think once they get to tournaments in 4A, I think it's a team that could go a long ways. Got one of the best freshmen in the state, I would say, in Libby Fandel. We've talked about her a little bit before. Just a terrific player. They got some veterans in Alexis Beyer and some of those kids that are juniors and seniors. Maya Carl, good inside kid. So a really nice mix for Xavier. Really deep team, and a team that certainly could be playing into March.
All right, give me your top 5 teams in the Valley.
Let's go. We'll go Waterloo West 1, Iowa City West 2. I'd say probably Xavier 3, City High 4, and oh boy, I would say I would take Liberty 5, just a skosh over Washington Cedar Falls. Kennedy's in the discussion, Linmar's in the discussion, so probably 8 or 9 teams deep in the Valley girls.
That's quality right there. I mean, when you can't even permanently say Washington's in like the top 5, and when you got a player the caliber of Hannah Stolke, I mean that kind of says something to me. So
when they're on and they're playing well, they're in that mix. Probably that 3, 4, 5 mix, but could use a little bit more consistency.
Couldn't we all?
Last night I was out in Schellsburg. I saw the Bikettes and the Clear Creek Amana. Clear Creek Amana shot 58%, played really, really well, and won that game 64-40. And just another game in the Wild Walmack West.
All right, I'm going to ask you because I asked around last Friday night. I was Marion, saw Marion beat Dyersville Beckman and kind of asked Coach Marion Coach Messerly, beat Messerly. All right, so how do you guys work this whole conference thing record-wise? And he's like, you know what? I'm not even sure. I think we count all the conference games and then determine division winners, but I'm not really 100% sure on that. So
Yeah,
how do you determine WAMAC champs?
Yeah, I think the philosophy on that's kind of changed. So when I do standings, I do both division records and conference records. I think divisional champions are determined by divisional only records, which was news to me about this time last year. So they've got divisional champions, and then they'll have a conference champion who has the best conference record overall. And that so the teams in the East are playing 10, 17 games, and the teams in the West are playing 18, I believe. And that's how I'm pretty sure. Well, that's how I'm determining it, because that's what I've been told. So there you go.
It was funny too. I talked to it's kind of a chore sometimes to put these conference standings together. I threw a question out there to South Iowa Cedar League coaches. I'm like, because some schools, they play 17, I think 17.
They play 16 because they basically have 5 or 6 on each side. So they play their side twice and they play the other division once.
But some schools play cross division teams twice. So my big question was, all right, so which game counts in the standings and which one, is a non-conference game? And I got all these different answers. It's like, well, usually when you play a team, the games at the beginning and the end of the season are non-conference usually. And then if you play somebody in the middle of the season, it's just like,
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that the coaches don't really even know what's not.
So when that's the case, the bylaws need to be a little bit more clear. I know that the South Iowa Cedar League plays 16 games, 10 on your side, 6 on the other, and they determine division.
And you said postseason you don't expect till next week for the girls, right?
Right. Girls will be 1A, 2A, 3A. I've been told that they'll be released on the 2nd or 3rd of February, and then 4A and 5A will be a week later, which would be the 9th or the 10th.
Okay. We did have pods or assignments for the 1A and 2A and the boys that were released last Friday. So I don't know. Just kind of scrolling through them right now. 1A, Northland. They separated the 3 good 1A schools kind of pretty well, and in 1A when you look at Northland and
Springville.
Yeah, Springville, Alburnette's got a good team too, and they put Northland in a district and a corresponding district with Edco. That's probably the other really good team, and Wapsie Valley is in district, the opposing district as well. So that's kind of noteworthy. And then the other one, District 7 and 8 is, Alburnette's in there. It's got a really good team. Gladbrook Rhinebeck is one of the top teams around here. Lisbon's in there, which is having a really nice season, and Springville. And then, District 9, you start heading south where you got Danville's got a real nice team. Hillcrest Academy's in there in District 9. Winfield Mount Union has a 1-loss team that's good, and District 10 is Iowa Valley's having a real nice season. New London is good there too, and just kind of scrolling through, and then 2A was interesting the way they, that was kind of split up. Was You put Monticello, which is undefeated, in the same sub-state with the Dyersville Beckman, which I thought was really interesting. So, and Williamsburg too, which is a really good team. So that's a pretty power pack, sub-state there when you look at districts, 9 and 10. And so, yeah, that's just maybe kind of a couple of the highlights, there. It's interesting the way they split it up. We'll get a look Friday at the two big schools, 3A and 4A, and that'll be really interesting to see how the state, kind of divides that up. And that's not just including around here, Jeff. When you look at, what happened over the weekend with Josh Dix, the Iowa signee, has the compound fracture in his leg, and unfortunately in the game for his team in Council Bluffs Lincoln. So he's done for the year, and that's a huge hit for them. So does that change, what you decide you're going to do with Council Bluffs, Lincoln? I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, are Monticello and Mid-Prairie both still undefeated?
Yes. And they rescheduled their game. They were supposed to play a couple weeks ago. It got snowed out. They're going to play the very end of the regular season. So I guess that way, neither one of them, when it comes to seedings and things like that, that won't, they won't have a game in, so it won't hurt either one. So those are the final two undefeated teams, in our area, in any of the classes. So wanted to ask you, I know the girls, and we talked about this, I think, a lot too, just about the rankings, that the girls come out with their own rankings, and, kind of been getting into discussions with different people, and who kind of denigrate the AP poll on the boys' side. There's other people out there that do their own polls. Iowa Prep Hoops, Iowa Prep with a Z has one. I think the Register has I don't know if they do classes though. They do 2 classes or just their Super 10. But there's so many polls out there on the boys' side, and is that a good thing or a bad thing, or do you prefer the way the girls do it, and the union comes out with their own?
Yeah. I don't know. I think what the union does is solid. Would I like to see a poll for the sports writers? Maybe. I think that the union does a nice job though, and Varsity Bound has rankings. I think it's kind of similar to what BC Moore does. I think it's kind of results based only and not eye test, which is fine. So I don't know. I don't know of anybody else that does rankings other than the girls' union. I do the area rankings, but I don't do state rankings other than preseason. So, you before we became an AP paper again, you did your own. And I'm sure you did it tremendously well. As far as who you keep track of and stuff like that, and it's a lot of work. I know that. But what are your thoughts about the way it's worked with AP?
I mean, there have been different times. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be transparent here and say that there have been different times this season where it's been kind of ludicrous, to be quite frank, as far as teams that have received votes. I'll give you a for instance here too. Esterville Lincoln Central was the first of the others in Class 3A this week. Well, Esterville Lincoln Central is a 2A school. So, and for whatever reason, and the APs, it's all done on via computer. It's got to scroll down the list of schools per class. Well, for whatever reason, Esterville Lincoln Central is still on the 3A menu. and that's partly my fault too, because I say something to them, but yeah, and then I think we had 12 or 13 people vote 2 weeks ago, yesterday or Monday. There was 8, so it varies from week to week. And I understand people's frustrations with that, but I think we all do have the best interest of the kids and the teams in mind. But all that being said, I don't know. Maybe we all come together and hammer it out, the websites and us and everything. So.
Yeah, IPSWA, the Iowa Preps or Iowa Press Writers, Sports Writers Association. There's some people there that would do a very good job as well, I think.
Yeah. And I have a lot of respect for my fellow, sports writers, and I think that in the state, and they I think for the most part, they try and be accurate with this kind of stuff instead of, being homers and voting for, their own teams. But, also too, you say that you only see a certain amount of teams. You don't see teams for us, over in the western part of the state, or sometimes we see central Iowa schools, but so, it's difficult. I mean, it's just opinion, right? People, I think, kind of get wrapped up into and a little too much into this, but it's opinion, and we do try and do our best. And, then we see how ignorant we all are when the postseason rolls around and, these teams get beat, and, then who determine who the state champs are. So. I don't know.
I do like the way we've done football the last 6-8 years with our committee at the Gazette, with you and KJ and so on and so forth. And I think I know that there's not a homer amongst the 6 of us. So I think we've done a really good job with football.
I agree. And it's fun too. We do all take it. We all do take it seriously week to week, and I hope people enjoy that. I guess I never asked you. I mean, when you do your Super 10s and things like that, and you mix classes in there, I mean, is it, when you go 1 through 10, that you really do think these are the top 10 teams, regardless of class? I mean, like if they played against each other, a 1A played a 4A. You think, the 1A could beat a 4A and things like that? Or is it just kind of a combination of, how well you're playing in your particular class? Or how do you work that?
I go by who I think the best 10 are in order. I've got Northland 3 and Springville 4. And I think that's where they belong. I think those 2 teams could play with the big schools and beat several of them. So I think the resumes are very good. And that's just kind of the way I see it. I don't, I don't have them at that point just because of where I think they fall in their class. I think I've got them where they are because I think that's where they fall in the area.
That's very interesting. Then that's a great discussion too, Jeff, right? How do you determine, or what do you think a 1A school would do in like the Valley or something like that?
Yeah.
And it depends.
And you and I have both had Northland teams that have been very, very good. And do I think their girls year in and year out can compete in the MVC? Absolutely. And I imagine you feel the same way about their boys.
Yeah, I would agree with that, certainly. And that's something I've really asked to be quite honest. I've asked the Valley coaches who, maybe have seen like a Northland play or whatever. Honestly, just between you and me, how do you think they would do in the Valley if they played in the Valley? And the response I get the most would be they would definitely be competitive. So that's good to see. And like on the boys' side, I think Grandview Christian's going to be incredibly difficult to beat in 1A. Because they haven't I don't even know if they played a 1A school this season. Maybe a couple. But they're an independent, and they've stacked their schedule with some 4A schools and some 3A schools, and they've whooped them all. So I mean, literally, they beat everybody by 20 plus or more. So maybe that right there just answers your question. That
Yeah. And I, the other sports, volleyball, softball, baseball. I absolutely think that the best small schools could be competitive. Like New Hartford, probably has the best volleyball program in the state. They lost one match, and they lost it to a 5A school, and they beat that same school, which was Iowa City Liberty, once, and they beat everybody else in 5A. So if there was an all-comers state tournament for volleyball, could New Hartford win it? Absolutely. So in softball, some of those small schools have a really dominant pitcher, and they could hang with the big schools. So maybe not quite as much in baseball, just because then you get into pitching depth, and the bigger schools probably have more pitching depth. But the small schools, Ace could probably shut one of those teams down for one game.
Well, you looked like way back in the day when I was playing in high school, and baseball. Norway would play all the Cedar Rapids schools every single season. Double headers, and they'd put a knot on our heads a lot of the times too, quite frankly. So that's just just another example of a small school, small program that is good enough to not just play with your highest enrollment schools, but beat them, and beat them fairly regularly. So class size doesn't really matter a lot of times,
Right.
in most all sports. So, all right. So our weeks, fire away.
Well, Friday I will be at Xavier for Iowa City West Xavier. It's a girl-boy doubleheader, so I'll cover both of those. And then weekend off, and Monday Iowa plays at home. Or no, they play Monday. Iowa hosts Ohio State in a top 25 matchup. That'll be a good game. They play at Northwestern Friday.
What is today? Wednesday, right? I think I'm going to head out tomorrow night just to watch Lisbon play. They've kind of snuck under the radar over there. They're in the other division for some reason. From the other Tri-Rivers schools, your Edcos, your Springvilles, your Northlands, your Albernets. So they play a really good Wilton team. So I think I'm going to head over there Thursday night just to get a look at the Lions. Brandon Horman's the head coach out there. He was head coach at Cedar Rapids Jefferson, did a really good job, and just kind of moved his family out there. They're from smaller towns, Calamus, Wheatland area. So he's done a real nice job in a couple of years as head coach. And so I'm going to do that. And then Friday we'll do, I think, Linder and Washington. Boy-girl doubleheader. And the girls should be a pretty good game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It should. Linder beat them, I think, by 7 points last time they played. They've kind of hit the skids a little bit. They've lost 3 in a row. Washington might be starting to pick things up again. So, yeah, I think that'll be a really competitive girls game. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week. We'll be back next week, and hopefully things warm up and enjoy your games.
Thank you.